Yeah. Good morning. Welcome to our first Thursday of the month Eat and Learn session. We have a crowd, we see. Our program this morning is about helicopters, but I couldn't resist a comment or two about what happened 81 years ago tomorrow. This is D-Day Eve. This is where all the folks that were getting ready to get killed were getting ready to go out and see what they could do. So I have a poem that a young man, 19-year-old young man, wrote about 2 weeks after he'd been to D-Day. Here's what he said, and I got John up here in case I cry. War is a gruesome thing, they say, but I did not know it till today. As we landed on that hostile shore, mines, guns, and tanks began to roar. The shells and shrapnel flew all around, death and destruction to whom it found it. The beach was sure a bloody sight, confusion and fear from left to right. It sure looked like a lost world until our old glory was unfurled. And when the beach was well secure, we counted our death just to be sure. Hundreds of them lay in the sand. They gave their life for our grand land. And those who were wounded very bad returned to England, shaky and sad. It could have been much worse, you know, because we faced a stubborn foe. We boys showed plenty of spirit and fight. We gave all we had with all our might. And though we were rookies a few hours before, now we were veterans with 100 score. We drove the enemy to the rear. We hoped we'd win. We win sometime this year. Yes, God was with us all the way. And I hope He is with us to stay. And though we gave our blood and sweat day and night, dry and wet, and though this day was something new, fighting the foe hard and true, we still had all of you in mind, you at home who are so kind, hoping someday to return to all you loved ones whom we yearn. Yes, war is a gruesome thing, they say, but I did not know it until today. I thought that was appropriate for this evening. Would you bow with me? Father God, we gather here to remember the freedom we enjoy. It is appropriate that we remember it is the 81st eve of our greatest armada ever. We call it D-Day. Thousands of our young men will lose their lives on this day tomorrow, that we might enjoy ours. We are told that the battle for Omaha Beach was particularly difficult, and without the courage and bravery of our young men, we could have lost our foothold on that beach. Thank you for giving our boys the strength to push forward to victory. And so we ask your continued blessing on what we do here today, and we ask it in your holy name. Amen. Amen. Would you stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag and our country? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Larry Head, our national anthem.
Please feel free to join in. Oh, say Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the hope of the brave?
Big crowd today. Big crowd today. This is great to see everyone here. Donna Bone is going to talk about the bus tours. Donna.
Good morning, everybody. How are we doing today? What am I too close to? This? Okay. So the first bus tour was 1 month ago today, and we had a good time, and it was a lot of fun. Raise your hand if you were on that tour. Okay. Anything you'd like to tell the people about the tour that you think they might be interested in?
Best $10 spent ever.
There you go. Anybody else? Okay, the second one is actually today after the lunch and learn. It starts at 12:30. It was sold out, but we had 2 last-minute cancellations, and I was able to fill one of those seats this morning. So if there's another single in here who's interested in going on the tour, we're open. Moving forward, we have scheduled 3 additional tour dates. They are July 26th, August 30th, and November 1st. And you can go to the Evansville Wartime Museum's website and sign up and pay on the website if you would like to go on one of these future bus tours. Any questions? Okay, yes. It's a World War II. We go around to Evansville and point out all the World War II factories, and there's some restaurants, museums, just places of interest that were here during World War II. It's on the poster up here, so you can always come up and take a look. Well, it's not on that poster. It's on this one, July 20th. The next 3 are on Saturdays. So it's July 26th, August 30th, and November 1st. Okay, for those of you coming on the tour, we'll see you after the lunch and learn event. Thanks.
So I need some help from Nancy Sanderson, Kathy Decker, and Marcia Lynn.
Nancy's not here.
I think, Kathy, you're the only one of the 3 here. You got 2? Oh. So, Kathy's up here with me. Also, Ryan Parker with the Vandenberg County Foundation, Community Foundation. And Ryan has a few words to say, and he's going to make a presentation to our educational group.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure to be with everyone today. As John mentioned, my name's Ryan Parker. I'm with the Community Foundation, Vandenberg Community Foundation, and this is one of the best parts about being a board member of the Community Foundation is when I get the opportunity to give away money. Everybody likes to receive money, but one of the things that the foundation does is we are pleased to present grants to a number of our community partners that do good work around the community. And today, I am pleased, very pleased, to be able to present to the Evansville Wartime Museum a check in the amount of $15,000. And this check is to continue and to assist you continuing with your educational efforts for K through 12, as well as senior citizens, and just keeping all of the educational opportunities that you have here at the museum alive. So Kathy, thank you so very much to you and your team for everything you do.
Thank you very much. And I just want to say this will go such a long way in helping to bring classrooms to the museum. Sometimes they can't get buses. Sometimes they don't have the money to come in. And this will help us to reach out to many, many children to teach them about Evansville history and career.
Thank you so much. I look forward to coming back and seeing what that money does. Everybody have a great day and enjoy the presentation.
Just to highlight the reach of the educational program, so far this year there have been 1,100 students, K through 12, who've come to the museum to learn about, one, that there was a World War II, and three, to learn what Evansville did during World War II, but also other wars, and to understand the effort it takes to maintain our freedom. So our speaker today, Joe Miner, he's an Evansville resident since 1957. He got an honorable discharge from 3 branches of the service. He started out as an aviation cadet in Pensacola. He was commissioned as a first lieutenant Marine and then joined the Army National Guard. So Joe's talking about helicopters, and Joe is talking about helicopters from the standpoint of being in the pilot's seat. So Joe, come on up.
And that poem, I will say, starting out, I was born and raised on a farm in Illinois. And as a kid growing up, I was more interested in tractors and raising hogs and corn than I was in airplanes and flying. But I had a cousin that went to school down at Murray, Kentucky, Murray State, and he talked me into going down there with him. And one morning, going out to the lobby of the boys' dorm, there was a couple of Navy recruiters there. And they were talking about a program called the Naval Aviation Cadets. And it was kind of interesting. And since my grades didn't necessarily influence the local draft board, I thought that might be a pretty good alternative since I was eligible for the draft and the Korean conflict was still going on. So I joined the Naval Aviation Cadets. I was sworn in 2 weeks before the fighting and shooting stopped in Korea. So technically, I'm a Korean veteran. A flight class did not open up at Pensacola until November of that year. So at Pensacola, we thought we was going to be flying jets. They told us we could be hot jet pilots. And got down there and found out for the first 16 weeks, we were in pre-flight. And we had Marine gunny sergeant drill instructors that taught us to march and salute and to carry a rifle and all that good stuff for half a day. Then the other half day, we spent in a classroom learning about principles of flight, navigation, weather, all of that good stuff. Finally, after that 16 weeks, we got to start flying. And this is what we started out in. the SNJ. Some of you here are probably familiar with the SNJ. In this plane, we learned the basic flying, aerobatics, 6-plane cross-country formation flying, gunnery, bombing. I actually landed on an aircraft carrier with a tail hook 6 times in this plane. After basic, we advanced on into helicopters. Since I had already been accepted to get my commission in the Marine Corps, only Marine Corps candidates were eligible for helicopters. The first helicopter that we flew, and yeah, that is me. It's hard to believe I was that young once, but we learned the basic difference between flying helicopters and flying fixed wing. In fixed wing, you have a stick that controls your directional flight. And we had that same control in the helicopters. In the helicopter, we called it a cyclic stick. That control varied the pitch on the blades of the rotor system. That's what gave you directional flight. On the foot pedals down here, we had, in the fixed wing, it was called a rudder control. With the helicopter, you had a tail rotor. Now let's go back here. That's not going to work. The rotor system on a helicopter created torque, and that caused the fuselage of the aircraft to want to rotate in the opposite direction. I think that's some kind of a rule in physics. And but the tail rotor stopped the aircraft from going the opposite direction, and that was also controlled by the foot. The other control that we had there, see if I can get this thing to go backward. Go back to the, well, no, I'm still going forward. Okay, there we go. Okay, now let's go back here a little bit. In the Bell, some of you see this plane a lot if you watch the MASH series on TV. Yeah. This is the plane that is on MASH. You see the litters on the side there. But the main control there was what we call the collective. And that's this control in my left hand. Under my hand right here is a grip, like a motorcycle throttle grip. And that controlled your engine RPM and power, much the way the accelerator does on your car. The other thing that this control did, when we picked up on it, it increased the pitch on the blades of the rotor system. That's what caused you to fly. That's what picked the plane up. After about 30 hours in the Bell, we advanced to the HUP-2. Now you can see this is a twin rotor system. You had rotors front and back. So you eliminated the tail rotor. This counteracted torque. We got about 30 hours in this, and I actually made carrier landings in the HUP-2. So I am also a helicopter carrier qualified pilot. After about 30 hours in the HUP-2, they said we were helicopter pilots. So we had a total of about 60 flight hours in helicopters, and I got my commission in the Marine Corps, was commissioned as second lieutenant, got my Navy wings of gold, and got orders to report to a squadron. At that time, a cadet could not be married. So as soon as I got my commission, I came home and married the gal I'd been dating for a few years, and we went, my orders read MCAS El Toro, California. So we drove to California. I got ready to turn my orders in, and the gunny sergeant said, "Lieutenant, the major wants to meet all incoming new personnel." So I go in to meet the major, and he said, "Lieutenant, I've got good news for you. We're transferring you on to Hawaii." Major, that's not good news for me. My new bride and I have rented a house here in El Toro. We'll have relatives coming out from the Midwest. I'd rather stay here. Send the bachelors on to Hawaii. It was still a territory at that time. At that point, the major stood up, reached across the desk, and poked me in the chest, and said, "Lieutenant, there's one thing you'll learn damn fast. You don't tell the Marine Corps where you're going, and your blank blank is going to Hawaii." Now, I'd only been in the Marine Corps for a few weeks, but that was long enough for me to know that you didn't talk back to a Marine Corps major. So at that point, I stood up, come to attention, saluted, and said, "Yes, sir." And I just knew when I went back to the house that my new bride would pack up and come back to her mother in Shawneetown, Illinois, because she'd never been away from home very long. Well, she didn't. She stayed with me. We went to Hawaii. I didn't mean to do this. My two oldest sons were born in Hawaii. The oldest was here today. We lost the second one about 4 years ago. So anyway, I reported in to Marine Corps Air Station in Kaneohe Bay, Hawaii, and joined the helicopter squadron, HMR 161. Now 161 was flying the HRS, built by Sikorsky. This squadron had been in Korea and had returned back to Kaneohe about 2 months before I joined them. All the pilots there in the squadron had been through the Korean conflict with the squadron. And they did not get to come back stateside until they got us checked out in this HRS. So you can imagine how quick they trained us to fly at the HRS. They got to come home as soon as we were qualified. HMR 161 wound up as a very historical unit. They had set a number of records in Korea. They were the first helicopter squadron to fly a battalion of troops directly to the front lines of combat. They had a record of carrying the most tonnage of supplies to the front lines. They had a flight safety record. They had more hours in the air without an accident of any squadron there. They evacuated lots of wounded troops from the front lines back to emergency stations. Within just a few weeks, this squadron was made up of 17 brand new second lieutenant helicopter pilots and 3 salty majors that had been through Korea with the squadron. How those majors survived us, I'll never know. But they did. And we did learn to fly that bird. And we worked a lot with the infantry units, artillery units. We were on maneuvers, making simulated beach assaults, training with troops for combat. We also worked with aviation units on the base. You see a couple of AD Sky Raiders coming in on one of our training missions down at Bellis Field. We airlifted supplies to those people on training maneuvers. We did some practice emergency evacuation. The other thing that we got to do was work with the civilian conservation corps. The Marine Corps had an agreement with the local authorities that we would supply help to their conservation people on each island. So I got to be on all of the islands quite a bit. In January of '56, get to work on Monday morning, the place was a beehive of activity. They were packing gear. We were to be on the aircraft carrier Princeton at 8 o'clock that night with sealed orders. We didn't know where we were going. We were packing cold weather gear. We figured we were going to the Aleutians to fight the Russians. We get out to sea the next morning. They opened our orders. We were going to Yokosuka, Japan to pick up a battalion of Marines that had been flown in from Okinawa. After we left Yokosuka, we opened new orders. We were going to Bangkok, Thailand. We weighed anchor and anchored in the Bay of Siam, just outside of Bangkok. We airlifted that battalion from the helicopter carrier into Don Muang Airport in Bangkok. This is flying over Bangkok. You might be able to pick out some of the temples, Buddhist temples that we flew over there. We bivouacked, set up camp on Don Muang Airport. While we were there, the Air Force airlifted in a company of paratroopers from Australia. They joined us camping there on the airport facility. While we were there, the Southeast Asia Treaty Organization was formed. And that treaty was signed while we were there. We looked back at that. Not too long after that was when we started sending in the advisors for the Vietnam conflict. So I was sworn in while the Korean War was on. I was that close to Vietnam. We airlifted the battalion back to the carrier, came back by Okinawa, airlifted them back to their base, and came back to Yokosuka. The Princeton was being tied up in Yokosuka dry dock for about 6 weeks. So they transferred us to the aircraft carrier Hancock, CVA-19, which was tied up in Yokohama. The Hancock brought us back to Hawaii. Sometime after that, we learned of this fella, and I'd like to introduce you to Charlie Command. I'm going to revert back to World War II. Charlie was an engineer with Hamilton Corporation. Now, Hamilton made the prop that you see right there on that P-47. That was his company, or the company he worked for. If you look at the blades on that prop, you'll see a little red oval that says Hamilton Corporation. They manufactured hydraulically controlled variable pitch propellers for all military aircraft and civilian aircraft. The SNJ that we flew had a Hamilton hydromatic prop on it. Charlie wanted Hamilton to expand into helicopter blades and control systems. Hamilton officials said helicopters are just a flash in the pan, they'll never amount to anything, so they wouldn't listen to Charlie. Charlie left. He was a bachelor, went back home to his mom in Bloomfield, Connecticut, where he had a shop. And there he started working on developing helicopter blades and control systems. He had an 1933 Pontiac. He stripped it down to the frame, engine, transmission, rear axle, sealed off one side of the rear axle, stuck the other one up in the air, and that was his test power unit for developing his helicopter rotor system. He was so convinced that he had something going, he went to New York and to raise money to further his experimenting. While in New York, he was sitting at a bar, and a gentleman came in and sat down beside him. His name is also Charlie, and I cannot remember his last name, and I can't find it anywhere. So I'll just refer to him as Charlie the pilot, because he had just been discharged from the Navy, where he was a test pilot for the Navy. Now, Charlie the pilot had never been around helicopters. Charlie Command was not a pilot. He had never flown. But the two of them together that night joined forces, and they went back to Bloomfield, Connecticut. At Bloomfield, they developed a helicopter and built a flying model of a helicopter using Charlie's controls and blades. They invited representatives from all branches of the military service, the War Department, other government officials, seated them all in the bleachers of the local high school football field one Saturday morning. And Charlie the pilot flew in their test helicopter, flew up and down the football field, and even though he crashed it there that morning, those officials were so impressed with what they saw that they saw to it that Charlie Command got a major financial grant to continue his experimenting on helicopter development. They also made available to him military surplus hardware, engines, this sort of thing. At that point, Command Aircraft Corporation was formed. They are still in existence today. They are a major producer of helicopters, and not just helicopters, but hardware for our space program and other aviation. Now, jump forward to 1956, and by this time, they had developed the HOK helicopter. Now, our squadron, HMR 161, was the first Marine Corps squadron to get this aircraft. We got 3 of them. And Charlie the pilot came to Hawaii with his family and taught our mechanics to service and maintain these planes, taught 3 pilots to fly it. And we also became instructors for the rest of our squadron. There were some unique features about this particular plane. You'll notice the pylons. There's 2 pylons on here. There are shafts coming out of the common transmission at 19-degree angle. And you have two blade rotor systems that are counter-rotating. So you eliminate torque. So you don't worry about those laws in physics. And this was a fun plane to fly. It was very agile, very quick, very maneuverable. And Charlie the pilot taught 3 of us. The first was Major Bill Eldridge, our operations officer. Second was Lieutenant Fred Jarrett. And third was yours truly. I was the 3rd squadron helicopter pilot in the Marine Corps to get to fly these. Another unique thing about this particular aircraft, the right side of this canopy windshield would hinge out. You could pull a pin on the co-pilot's cyclic stick and stored it on the floor. The seat for the co-pilot and the passenger seat behind him would collapse into the floor. Then there was a rack from this right side that folded down. At that point, you could slide 2 stretchers with wounded in there and evacuate them back to a first aid or a MASH unit. If you were sent out on a mission to rescue wounded, you would take a mech with you. He would ride in the passenger seat beside the pilot, and he could perform first aid on the way back to a unit. The first time I got to fly the HOK was in June of 1956. The last helicopter that I flew was an HOK in October of 1957. Thanks to helicopter pioneers like Charlie Kaman and Igor Sikorsky and Piasecki, they proved Hamilton wrong. Helicopters were more than just a flash in the pan. Our military aircraft arsenal today is made up of a lot of helicopters. So thanks to these pioneers, they persisted and continued to build helicopters. Now, aviation engineers will tell you that aerodynamically, a helicopter cannot fly. Most of them are just so ugly that the earth repels them into the sky. Thank you for listening today.
Thank you, Joe. Does anybody have any questions for Joe?
Shoot. So did I.
Any other questions?
Remember, it's been 65, 70 years since I've flown these things, so I probably couldn't answer them anyway.
Thank you, Joe. No other questions? 2 weeks, Stanley Schmidt is here to talk about airships post-World War I and their design. Thank you. And the bus trip, we're leaving a little bit later. I lost Donna. All right, thank you.
Just repel. That's pretty good.
It repels it.
Just repel it.
Earth don't like them, so it throws them up.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.